Welcome everyone to the program. We begin with the Judiciary and in Abuja, where Justice Okon Abang of the Federal High Court has declared as unlawful the defection of 53 lawmakers in the National Assembly to other political parties. Justice Abang held that based on the judgment of the Supreme Court, which laid down reasons that would allow for defection, the lawmakers did not meet that requirement. The Legal Project, LEDAP, had filed the suit challenging the defection of the President of the Senate and 53 other lawmakers. LEDAP had asked the court to order lawmakers to vacate their seats in the National Assembly and return all salaries and allowances earned since their defection, arguing that the lawmakers defected from their political parties for selfish reasons other than division in their parties as prescribed by law. But in the case of one of the lawmakers, and this is Senator Godswill Akpabio, Justice Abang held that he is not in violation of the law because he neither decamped nor defected to the APC with the facts before the court. Now, on Monday, the court granted leave to Senator Akpabio to file an application challenging the suit by LEDAP, saying that there is no evidence before the court that Senator Akpabio was personally served, since the suit is not a class act against the Senate. And according to Senator Akpabio, contrary to the suit filed by LEDAP, he did not defect to another political party, but only moved. Now let's touch base with our correspondent, Judiciary correspondent, covering that proceedings and much more. She's at the Apex Court. Amaka, tell us what the latest is of the hearings today.
Okon Abang of the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has struck out the suit filed by the Legal Defense and Assistance Project against 57 lawmakers on the grounds that LEDAP lacked local standard to file the suit against the lawmakers. Justice Abang agreed with the lawmakers that LEDAP is not the political party that sponsored them to the National Assembly, nor are they the voters that voted them into the National Assembly, or the Independent National Electoral Commission, which monitors political parties. And as a result of that, their suit challenging the defection of the lawmakers to other political parties for reasons other than defection in their division in their political parties is struck out. In reaching that judgment, however, Justice Abang agreed with the plaintiff that the lawmakers did not defect in line with Section 68, subsection 1G, which mandates that there must be division that will stop political parties from functioning as they should before anyone can defect to another political party. But in the case of Senator Godswill Akpabio, the court struck out the suit against him for lacking in merit. The court agreed with Senator Akpabio that he did not defect, but instead moved to fulfill his fundamental rights after he had been expelled, first of all suspended and then expelled by the People's Democratic Party. Justice Abang held that Akpabio proves by the exhibits before the court that indeed his party expelled him, and for him not to remain in a void and exercise his fundamental right to freedom, he had every right to move to the All Progressive Congress, and as a result of that, the suit against him is null and void and is thereby struck out. He, however, said that the plaintiffs had a good case, but because they were not the necessary parties to file the suit and they did not have a fiat from the Attorney General of the Federation to file a suit that could be injurious to the general public of Nigerians, the suit could not stand on anything. Now, while Justice Abang was delivering that judgment, Justice Ian Eko, in another court just close by, asked Mr. Omoyele Sowore and Malcolm Fabiyi, who were the chairman and vice chairman of the African Action Congress, to stop parading themselves as national chairman and vice chairman. The members of the party filed an ex parte motion which was granted, that Mr. Sowore and his deputy had been suspended by the party. As such, the general public and INEC should not recognize them as the leaders of the party. Back to you, Lagos.
All right. Thank you so much, Amaka, there with the latest on those cases, defection judgment, and also that of the African Action Congress suit there in Abuja. Of course, you can definitely see the latest subsequently in our bulletins. But let's also bring you this, which is that May 24th, 2019, the Supreme Court will deliver judgment in the pre-election appeals emanating from the Zamfara State All Progressives Congress primaries for the just concluded elections. Now, Justice Tanko Mohammed, the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, fixed the date after an appeal that the Apex Court considered the judgment before May 29 to prevent a constitutional crisis in Zamfara. Our correspondent Amaka Okafor also filed in this report.
It's less than 2 weeks to the May 29th inauguration day, when some newly elected public officers will take up their various positions. But the Zamfara State All Progressive Congress, which although won majority of the elective position in Zamfara State, is still engulfed in a legal tussle of the rightful candidates to represent the party. 2 appeals emanating from the Zamfara State All Progressive Congress primaries have moved from 2 high courts, 2 appeal courts, and have ended up at the Supreme Court, which has a final say on the issues at stake. In the Zamfara State main appeal, filed by Sanusi Limandan Al-Haji, his counsel, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, pleaded with the 5-man panel of the Supreme Court to allow the appeal and restore the judgment of the Zamfara State High Court, which allowed APC to field candidates in the 2019 general elections. Mr. Fagbemi specifically pleaded that the judgment of the Court of Appeal Sokoto Division, which prohibited APC from nominating candidates for the general elections on the grounds that the party did not conduct a lawful primary, should be set aside because the judgment is a miscarriage of justice. However, Mr. Michael Zokome, who stood for Senator Kabir Marafa, and 140 other respondents urged the court to dismiss the appeal and affirm the appeal court's judgment. The position of Mr. Zokome was adopted by the Independent National Electoral Commission through its counsel, Mr. Tanimu Inuwa, who also asked the Apex Court to dismiss the appeal for lacking in merit.
After taking everything, the matter is now stands adjourned to the 24th day of May for judgment, and also ruling in respect of all the applications that were moved.
It involves the so-called primary elections held in Zamfara, which the respondents here said were not well held in accordance with the constitution of APC, in accordance with the provisions of the Electoral Act, and in accordance with the provisions of the 1999 Constitution.
Judgment has been fixed for May 24, 2019, when the Supreme Court will lay to rest issues surrounding the Zamfara State All Progressive Congress primaries. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
Staying with legal issues, a member of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) in Odo-Tin local government area of Osun State, Mr. Jai Shuaib, on Thursday denied filing fresh suits against Senator Ademola Adeleke, his party, and the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). A fresh litigation with the Federal High Court number this year was on Monday, 13th of May, instituted against Adeleke, the PDP, and INEC at the Federal High Court of Shuvul by Jai Shuaib on behalf of himself and concerned members of the PDP. However, distancing himself from the suit, Mr. Jai maintained that his name was allegedly fraudulently used by one Bukola Adewale to file a fresh case against Mr. Adeleke, the PDP, and INEC, contending that he knew nothing about the litigation. The Senate also passed the Good Samaritans Bill and the Public Holiday Amendment Act Bill to recognize June 12 as the New Democracy Day. The Senate also confirmed Mr. Godwin Emefiele as Central Bank Governor for a second term of 5 years. This is after the lawmakers adopted the report of the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions. Our correspondent, Terry Kumi, reports.
Minister of Health has been invited to brief the Senate on Tuesday, the 21st May 2019 at 11 a.m.
The Senate President, at the beginning of plenary, announcing a date for the Minister of Health to appear before the Senate over the state of the country's teaching hospitals, following a motion by a lawmaker last week. Then the Senate considers and adopts the report of its Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions for the confirmation of Mr. Godwin Emefiele as Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
That the nominee has performed credibly in his first tenure, which resulted to the exit of the nation out of economic recession.
Will the Senate confirm the renewal of the nomination of Godwin Emefiele for the appointment as Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The renewal of the appointment of Godwin Emefiele is hereby confirmed as the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Mr. Emefiele's confirmation is one of the fastest in the history of the 8th Senate.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators.
The Senate also passes the Public Holiday Act Amendment Bill to recognize June 12 as the New Democracy Day.
An act to amend the Public Holidays Act, Cap P40, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to bring the act in tandem with the current realities and exigencies of the modern times, and to declare June 12 as Democracy Day in Nigeria and for related matters 2019 is read the third time and passed.
The Good Samaritans Bill, which seeks to protect people who render assistance during emergency situations, was also passed. The bill, when signed into law by President Buhari, will allay the fears of Nigerians of getting into trouble for helping persons in need of emergency assistance, such as accident victims, gunshot victims, and so on. Both bills, which are in concurrence with that of the House of Representatives, will now be forwarded to President Muhammadu Buhari for assent. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
We move over to Ogun State, where the office of the state chapter of the All Progressives Congress APC, located at the Mortuary Junction area of Abeokuta, the state capital, has been allegedly vandalized by yet unknown hoodlums. Briefing journalists at the state secretariat, the chairman of the party, Mr. Derry Adebiyi, said important files and documents were carted away during the raid, which occurred in the early hours of today. Although nobody has been arrested in connection with the incident, the chairman, however, said that the action has been reported to the security agencies for further investigation.
The attack was massive and destructive. All offices were broken into, including those of the chairman, the state secretary, the organizing secretary, among others. The attack witnessed vandalization of properties, such as air conditioners, pumping machine, ceiling, chairs, and television sets. All offices were ransacked, while important files and documents were taken away. The intention of the masterminds remain unknown but suspicious. This is because it is coming at the twilight of Governor Ibukula Mosun's administration that prides itself 8 years of peaceful coexistence and security of lives and properties in Ogun State.